Thanks a lot, Mike. That was very interesting from two perspectives. One is, of course, there's a lot of data to give confidence that social media actually works. And I thought that Whisper case was very nice because, as I understood, social media was by itself there. In a country like India, where it's a young country, as Nitin mentioned, the youth's aspirations are different and probably they'll jump. And as you know, we are one of the largest markets for Facebook in the world. So obviously our youth are on. So in a way, it's a very big, large confidence building presentation which you did for us. The question I want to ask you, and you alluded to that in your own example as well as the end, that social media can sometimes go wrong, you know, and most marketers are conservative. So how do you ensure, you know, so one is to use social media as active engagement. The other way is to just monitor. For a new marketer who's coming on board, how do you advise him to handle this? Because, you know, the mindsets are not there, companies can be slow, and the small part is that, the stupid part, but there is a point that social media is 24/7. Companies don't work 24/7. So how do you react?
I think the first and most important thing is to show your target audience an enormous amount of respect, because you know, if you do take risks, if you are disrespectful in any way whatsoever, then you run a very high chance of things going wrong. So you really need to think through what you're doing and approach it very carefully. The always-on question is very interesting, and I'm not sure that today, certainly media agencies are really, on a large scale, set up to manage social media on a 24-hour, 24/7 basis. We're just starting to do that. I think our success in that area hinges a lot on us finding a proper remuneration model, because quite honestly, the rates that we're paid by clients today, as you will well know, there isn't really the opportunity to offer that kind of facility. So I think we have to really reinvent the remuneration model for social specifically, because it's a very, very different activity. And you could argue that it strays into the world of public relations and customer relationship marketing. So, you know, it's a new area, and we're just really learning how to do that.
So, you touched on this, you preempted me. My next question was that, you know, how do we make money? But the fact is, while obviously it's both an experimentation, if it was to become mainstream in India, like it is in UK, as Dominic pointed out in the morning, that, you know, almost 40% of your revenues are going digital, and a sizable portion of that will be social media, the way Indians are auto-directed. What do you think will happen in the five years from now? If it was to become mainstream, how would we, as intermediaries or other parts of the value chain, make money out of this?
Specific to India? I think it's, I don't think there's any doubt that it will become a really viable business, and that it will make money. I mean, in India, I would say that the most likely scenario is that social will become predominantly a mobile medium. I mean, as you know, Facebook, Twitter, I mean, they all have mobile apps. You know, it doesn't rely on broadband penetration, even though that's relatively low in India. I mean, it will become a mobile phenomenon. And as we know, mobile has particularly high penetration amongst younger people. So I'd say that that's almost inevitable. And that's the model I would expect. I would anticipate it following in India.
And I can't resist asking you this question, since you're talking on social media in India. As you know, India is a large Facebook country. With the launch of Google Plus, what do you think will happen? What's your prognosis on Google Plus all over the world, and maybe what will happen in India?
Well, Google Plus is sort of showing early signs of a degree of success. I'm not sure that it's sufficiently differentiated yet, that it offers something quantifiably, sustainably different in its approach to challenge Facebook. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter what I think. The market will decide that. Consumers will decide that. But you know, Google, is an immensely powerful company. They don't usually make mistakes. So, whilst they may not threaten Facebook, I would expect them to take a reasonably significant amount of market share in this area. And one of the things that we learn with social media is that things change incredibly quickly. And if I was if I was managing Facebook, if I was managing Twitter, one of the things I'd be very, very careful about is not polluting my original proposition by overdoing the temptation to convert that into sales revenue, advertising sales revenue. I would try and achieve that in a reasonably subtle and respectful way, because I think otherwise you could quite quickly kill the golden goose. There are people that think that both Twitter and Facebook are just a fad. If it's a fad, it's a very, very big fad and a very, quite a long-term fad. But, if a challenger came along in the future that offered something via some of the technology that we've talked about and some of the technology we may not even be aware of, I think that there's the opportunity for the situation to change very, very rapidly. So I wouldn't take anything for granted in social media. I think that there's because it is so fast moving, I think there's the opportunity for for major shifts to take place in share.
That's exactly my next question, and which I alluded to in the beginning, that social media is all about change, it's about communities, it's very fast. And more often than not, most organizations and corporates are not attuned to speed of change. So what is your experience internationally, which you could share with the audiences here? How should corporates, because social media is something which directly affects the corporates, so how should companies handle that?
Well, I think if you look at these different companies, in order to answer that, you have to ask yourself, what are they? What is Twitter? What is Facebook? What is Google? And they would probably, or they do quite often say that they are technology companies. I don't think they are technology companies. I think they're media companies. Their valuation, the way they're valued by the markets, is really driven by the number of people they reach. And I think a lot of the value is via their potential to generate advertising. So I think we're in the unusual position of a business is that in that we're kind of we're sort of supporting a large portion of the global economy based on assumptions about advertising revenue for these companies. So everybody in this room is under an awful lot of pressure, really, because we've got to help these companies and help valuations of the stock market by valuing companies like Google and Facebook, because I honestly think that they're at the end of the day they are valued on the potential for advertising revenue. And the question is, where does all that come from?
Very interesting thought. So, since we're close to lunch, can I open it up to the audience if they have any questions of Mike?
Or are you all hungry?
We're a hungry audience, is it? It's Anurag.
If you look at India, and I don't know enough about UK and US, if you look at India, what is happening on Facebook in terms of campaigns is very basic, extremely basic. There are some campaigns that stand out, but most of the initiatives being done are very, very basic. My question to you is that the guys who are on the Facebook, the people who are on Facebook are very evolved. They're very knowledgeable. They're also probably very high ad avoidance. How do you get around making sure that when you're plugging your brand messages, where you use celebrities to plug your brand on their Facebook page or their fan page, are there any thumb rules that you, in your experience of working with brands, that we can follow? And second, because we run a media company, when you're trying to make sure you use social media, Facebook, to make sure your content is consumed more, are there again any thumb rules? I'm trying to get free advice. I'm not big enough to hire PhD.
So the question was about how do we use content on Facebook?
Media companies, how do media companies follow certain thumb rules on Facebook to increase traffic beyond the obvious ones? And second is, the guys who are on Facebook are very evolved. They're high ad avoidance. They know what is an advertising message and what is not. So in India, we are not seeing the kind of ideas that Mr. Paranjpe showed, or some of the things that you showed, the ideas are very basic.
I think it's very easy to become obsessed with a new media in terms of its technology platform. And it's always a mistake. I mean, I remember when satellite television first launched in a major way across Asia, there was this huge drive towards, of companies coming and in establishing themselves, investing large amounts of money, never really thinking about the content they were delivering because they were obsessed with the platform rather than the actual content. I think consumers very, very quickly forget that they're using something called Facebook or using something called Twitter. And I mean, the real value of either of those is connecting with other people, with friends, with individuals, with following what other people are saying. So I think the same rules apply to Facebook and Twitter in a media sense and in a creative sense that apply to any other kind of media, quite honestly, in that you've got to provide consumers with real engagement, what I would call respectful engagement, and provide them with real reasons why they should go there. And if you've got a promoted tweet or an offer or something like some of those examples that we showed there, to a certain extent, all of those are kind of experimenting. They're all at we're still at a very, very early stage in using social media to promote brands. So, you have to find ways of making offers that appeal to consumers and that really engage with people and that will offer them something. And if you can do that on a sustainable, engaging, interesting, entertaining, stimulating way, then you're likely going to be successful. If you don't, then you probably won't. But I'm not really sure that that's sufficiently different to to a lot of other existing communication channels. It's just that it's more, with social media, it's much more intense. It's always on, so you've got to be aware of that.
Question I wanted to ask is, I hear from the buzz that you're bringing PhD to India in some time, right? Are you going to acquire digital expertise, or are you going to acquire a firm? Are you making an acquisition?
No, we don't. Well, are we going to make an acquisition? Well, if we were, I wouldn't tell you about it here, I can assure you. We don't need to make an acquisition. I mean, the brand is already active in India. We haven't done a sort of major launch of it. We will very shortly. There's a couple of ingredients still to be put in place. But I mean, we are here. We have our offices. We have staff. We're servicing clients. So we are here. But we haven't done a hard launch yet. But we will do very soon.
And one comment. The reason I believe social media is not taking big is because the creative guys, the big creative guys, and their number twos haven't really in some way taken to social media for their campaigns.
So you're saying creative agencies haven't really embraced
social? Yes, that's my point of view.
I don't know that that's true. I mean, the Old Spice campaign that I showed you earlier on was from an agency called Wyden and Kennedy, which is a pure, to my knowledge, creative agency. I mean, they really focused on creative. I think the interesting thing about social is that campaigns on social come from anywhere. There are dedicated social agencies. There are media agencies like Mindshare and PhD. There are clients doing things directly. There are advertising agencies doing things. And it sort of reminds me of the early days of digital, when specialists sort of sprung up to handle this, and they all said this is a completely new world, and existing agencies aren't equipped to handle this. What generally tends to happen is that over time agencies learn very rapidly how to use a new medium and to be successful at it. My expectation would be that media agencies will own that space. And the key reason why I say that is because I think media agencies are in the best place to do it because they have the most consumer and audience data at their fingertips. as well as managing relationships with clients and media owners. So to me, they're in the sweet spot